feeding your mind, or slowly damaging it. Most people think food affects weight, energy, or blood sugar. Far fewer realize that every meal also reshapes how the brain functions, how clearly you think, how steadily you feel, and how well your memory holds. The brain is not a passive passenger. It responds immediately to what you eat, for better or for worse. For older adults, this relationship becomes especially important. Changes in digestion, absorption, and metabolism mean the brain no longer receives nutrients as efficiently as it once did. When the brain is underfed or poorly fueled, the effects are often subtle at first. Mental fog, forgetfulness, low motivation, mood changes. These signs are frequently dismissed as normal aging, when in reality they are often driven by nutrition-related mechanisms that can still be corrected. In this video, we're going to explain what food actually does to your brain, clearly, calmly, and based on how the body truly works. You'll see how certain eating patterns protect memory and mental clarity, while others quietly interfere with brain signaling over time. And stay with us, because one nutrient we'll discuss stands above all the others. Scientists now consider it one of the most commonly deficient nutrients in older adults, and it affects far more than memory, including muscle control, sleep quality, and heart health. Before we begin, let us know your age in the comments. We're reading and replying to everyone to help seniors better understand what's happening inside their bodies. Now, let's begin. The brain represents only a small fraction of body weight, yet it consumes a disproportionate share of the body's energy. Even at rest, it demands a constant supply of glucose, oxygen, amino acids, fats, vitamins, and minerals to maintain electrical signaling, repair cells, and regulate mood. When nutrition is inadequate or unstable, the brain does not wait politely for help. It reacts immediately. This is why mental symptoms are often the earliest warning signs of poor nutrition. Difficulty concentrating, irritability, low motivation, forgetfulness, or a vague sense of mental fatigue are not character flaws and are rarely just aging. They are signals that the brain is not being fed in a way it can reliably use. Unlike muscle or fat tissue, the brain has very limited energy storage. It depends on steady delivery. When that delivery falters, thinking quality drops first. Blood sugar instability is one of the most common drivers of this problem. Large swings, often caused by skipping meals, eating refined carbohydrates alone, or relying on sugary snacks, create rapid rises and falls in glucose. The brain experiences this as confusion, shakiness, poor focus, and emotional volatility. Over time, repeated instability forces the brain to work harder for less reward, increasing fatigue and reducing resilience. Hydration plays a similar role. Even mild dehydration reduces blood volume and slows circulation to the brain. This decreases oxygen delivery and impairs the removal of metabolic waste. The result is slower thinking, headaches, and reduced alertness, often mistaken for tiredness or lack of sleep. With age, these effects become more pronounced. Digestive efficiency declines, absorption becomes less reliable, and appetite cues weaken. Seniors may eat enough calories but still fail to deliver critical nutrients to the brain. When this happens consistently, neural communication weakens. Signals take longer to travel, reaction times slow, memory retrieval becomes less reliable. The key point is this: the brain does not deteriorate quietly, it responds to what it is given in real time. Feeding the brain properly is not about chasing mental sharpness for performance. It is about preserving clarity, emotional stability, and independence. When nutrition improves, the brain often responds faster than expected because it has been waiting for the fuel it needs all along. Sugar does not harm the brain in dramatic, immediate ways. It harms it quietly through repeated chemical signals that gradually change how brain cells respond to energy. The brain relies on glucose to function, but it relies even more on control. When sugar intake overwhelms the system, that control begins to break down. Each time you eat sugar or refined carbohydrates, blood glucose rises. In response, the body releases insulin to move that glucose into cells. Over time, frequent spikes force the system to work harder. Cells, including brain cells, become less responsive to insulin's signal. This is known as insulin resistance, and when it occurs in the brain, energy delivery becomes unreliable even when glucose is present. The result is mental fog. Focus becomes inconsistent. Words feel harder to retrieve. Motivation drops. The brain senses energy nearby but cannot access it efficiently. This mismatch creates fatigue without physical exertion and confusion without clear cause. Many seniors describe this as feeling off or not as sharp, without realizing it is driven by metabolic signaling, not memory loss. Insulin resistance also interferes with neurotransmitters that regulate mood and attention. Dopamine and acetylcholine, critical for motivation and memory, are particularly sensitive to unstable glucose handling. This helps explain why high-sugar eating patterns are associated not only with poor concentration, but also with irritability, low mood, and increased anxiety. Another overlooked factor is timing. Long gaps without food followed by sugar-heavy meals amplify glucose swings. The brain experiences this as stress. Cortisol rises to compensate, further impairing memory formation and emotional regulation. Over months and years, this pattern creates a brain that is constantly reacting instead of functioning smoothly. The danger is not the occasional sweet food. The danger is repeated exposure without balance. Pairing carbohydrates with protein, fiber, and healthy fats slows absorption and stabilizes insulin signaling. Regular meals protect the brain from energy shocks. This is not about restriction or fear. It is about restoring communication. When insulin signals become clear again, the brain often regains steadiness, clarity, and endurance. What feels like decline is often disruption, and disruption can be corrected. The brain is often described as an electrical organ, but structurally it is largely made of fat. Every neuron is wrapped in fatty membranes that determine how signals are sent, received, and protected. When the right fats are present, communication between brain cells is smooth and efficient. When the wrong fats dominate, that communication becomes distorted and fragile. Healthy fats are not simply energy sources, they are building materials. Omega-3 fatty acids in particular are essential for maintaining flexible cell membranes and supporting synaptic function, the process by which neurons exchange information. When these fats are adequate, signals move quickly and accurately. Memory formation improves, mood regulation stabilizes, reaction time stays sharper. By contrast, damaged and inflammatory fats interfere with this process. Highly processed vegetable oils, repeatedly heated oils, and trans fats alter the structure of brain cell membranes. They make them stiff and less responsive. This slows signaling and increases vulnerability to inflammation. Over time, the brain becomes less adaptable, less resilient, and more prone to fatigue. For seniors, this matters greatly. Aging already places stress on neuronal repair systems. When poor quality fats dominate the diet, the the brain struggles to maintain its structure. Myelin, the protective insulation around nerves, becomes weaker. This affects coordination, balance, and cognitive speed. Small lapses become more frequent, not because neurons are dying rapidly, but because communication between them is degrading. Another overlooked role of fat is hormone signaling. Many brain-regulating hormones are synthesized from fat-based compounds. When dietary fat quality is poor, hormone balance suffers. This can influence sleep quality, emotional regulation, and appetite control, all of which directly affect cognitive health. Importantly, low-fat diets are not inherently protective for the brain. When fats are removed, without being replaced by high-quality alternatives, the brain is forced to rely excessively on glucose. This increases metabolic stress and worsens the effects described in earlier chapters. The goal is not less fat. The goal is better fat. When the brain receives the fats it needs, repair processes become more efficient. Inflammation quiets. Signal clarity improves. Many people notice better focus and steadier mood within weeks, not because the brain has changed dramatically, but because it is finally being built with the right materials. This is how nourishment becomes protection. Inflammation is not always harmful. In the short term, it is the body's way of protecting and repairing itself. The problem arises when inflammation becomes chronic, low-grade, persistent, and largely invisible. In the brain, this kind of inflammation quietly interferes with thought, mood, and memory, long before any diagnosis is ever made. Certain foods repeatedly trigger inflammatory responses. Highly processed meals, refined sugars, damaged fats, and excessive alcohol signal the immune system to stay on alert. When this happens often, inflammatory chemicals begin circulating continuously. Some of these compounds cross the blood-brain barrier, activating immune cells inside the brain itself. Once activated, these cells release substances that disrupt normal signaling between neurons. The effects are subtle at first. Mental stamina decreases. Concentration fades more quickly. Emotional reactions feel stronger and harder to control. Many seniors describe feeling more anxious, irritable, or mentally slowed, without understanding that inflammation is altering how neurotransmitters function. Serotonin, dopamine, and glutamate signaling all become less efficient in an inflamed brain. Inflammation also affects blood flow. Swollen or irritated blood vessels deliver oxygen less efficiently. This deprives brain tissue of the resources it needs to stay sharp and responsive. Over time, this contributes to white matter changes that slow processing speed and impair coordination. One of the most misleading aspects of brain inflammation is that it often coexists with normal test results. Blood sugar may appear acceptable, cholesterol may not raise alarms, yet the brain is still under stress. This leads many people to assume their symptoms are unavoidable consequences of aging, when in reality they reflect ongoing biological irritation. The encouraging reality is that food-driven inflammation is highly responsive to change. When inflammatory triggers are reduced and replaced with nutrient-dense anti-inflammatory foods, the brain environment begins to stabilize. Immune activation quiets. Neurotransmitter balance improves. Blood flow becomes more reliable. This is not about chasing an ideal diet. It is about reducing unnecessary irritation to the most sensitive organ in the body. A calmer brain is not just a metaphor. It is a measurable physiological state, one that supports clearer thinking, steadier emotions, and better long-term cognitive health. When inflammation is addressed, the brain often reveals how capable it still is. The brain does not fail all at once. More often, it slows down quietly when key micronutrients fall out of balance. Vitamins and minerals act as cofactors in nearly every brain process, from neurotransmitter production to nerve insulation and blood flow regulation. When even one of these is consistently missing, brain performance declines in ways that are often misinterpreted as aging or irreversible decline. B vitamins are among the most critical. They support energy production inside brain cells and help maintain the protective coating around nerves. When levels drop, signals between the brain and body become weaker and less precise. Memory retrieval slows, balance may feel less stable, mood can flatten or become irritable. Importantly, many seniors consume enough B vitamins on paper, but fail to absorb them efficiently due to age-related changes in digestion. Minerals play an equally important role. Magnesium helps regulate nerve excitability and calm overstimulated brain circuits. When it is low, the brain becomes more reactive, sleep suffers, anxiety increases, and concentration becomes harder to sustain. Zinc supports memory formation and immune balance in the brain, while iron ensures adequate oxygen delivery. Too little iron can mimic cognitive impairment through fatigue and poor focus, even without anemia. Vitamin D deserves special attention. It functions more like a hormone than a vitamin, influencing inflammation, neurotransmitter balance, and brain immune regulation. Low levels are strongly associated with low mood, reduced motivation, and cognitive slowdown. Because vitamin D deficiency is common in older adults, its impact on brain health is frequently underestimated. One of the most dangerous aspects of micronutrient deficiency is how convincingly it imitates neurological disease. People may experience confusion, word-finding difficulty, apathy or unsteadiness, and assume the worst. Yet in many cases these symptoms reflect correctable shortages rather than permanent damage. The brain is remarkably responsive when deficiencies are addressed. Energy production improves, signal clarity returns, emotional regulation stabilizes. This does not happen because the brain is being stimulated, but because it is finally receiving the tools it needs to function normally. Nutrition at this level is not about optimization or enhancement. It is about restoration. The brain is designed to work well into later life, but only if its foundational requirements are met. When they are, what feels like decline often reveals itself as deprivation, and deprivation can be corrected. Brain health is not built on extremes. It is built on consistency, balance, and respect for how the brain actually functions. The brain thrives when energy arrives steadily, inflammation stays low, and essential nutrients are delivered in forms it can absorb and use. This does not require rigid rules or perfect meals. It requires structure. The most supportive eating pattern for the brain is one that stabilizes blood sugar across the day. Regular meals that combine protein, healthy fats, and fiber slow digestion and prevent energy spikes and crashes. This keeps glucose available to the brain without overwhelming insulin signaling. When energy is stable, mental clarity follows. Focus lasts longer. Emotional swings soften. Fatigue becomes less intrusive. Food quality matters as much as timing. Whole foods provide not only calories, but information. They supply vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, and fats in combinations the brain recognizes. These compounds support blood flow, protect neurons from oxidative stress, and reduce inflammatory signaling. Highly processed foods do the opposite. They deliver calories without context, forcing the brain to compensate. For seniors, simplicity is a strength. Repeating reliable meals reduces cognitive load and supports consistent nutrient intake. Hydration should be intentional, not incidental. Even mild dehydration undermines circulation and mental sharpness. Regular fluid intake, especially earlier in the day, supports alertness and reduces fatigue. Importantly, eating for brain health is not about chasing youth, it is about preserving function. Clear thinking, emotional steadiness, memory reliability, and independence are realistic goals at any age when the brain is supported rather than stressed. When food choices change, the brain often responds faster than expected. Not because it is fragile, but because it is adaptive. Remove unnecessary strain and natural resilience emerges. Your brain is not declining by default. It is responding to signals, chemical, hormonal, and nutritional, every single day. Food is one of the strongest signals it receives. When you understand how those signals work, you regain agency. You stop blaming age and start addressing mechanisms. Small, steady changes in how you eat can protect clarity, stabilize mood, and support memory far longer than most people realize. If this helped you see brain health differently, take a moment to reflect on one change you can make today. And if you want to continue learning how to protect your mind and body as you age, don't forget to stay connected with this channel. Clear thinking is not a luxury. It is something worth protecting.